this video, we are going to be identifying tenths and hundredths. So, what are tenths? Well, tenths are where a number of objects or one single object is divided into 10 equal parts, and the word equal here is really important to remember. Similarly, when we look at hundredths, this is where a number of objects or an object is divided into 100 equal parts. And as you can see here, I've got two representations of tenths and hundredths. So this square is split into 10, so each of these is worth 1/10. And here, this square is split into 100, so each of these smaller squares is going to be worth 1/100th. Okay, we're going to start with looking at tenths first of all. Now, in other words, this means dividing by 10. Both of these two bars are exactly the same size. However, the bottom bar is split into 10 equal parts, and this shows tenths. Okay, here then, one of my block of 10 is shaded blue. So as a fraction, I can call this 1/10. Remember, the numerator tells me how many parts are shaded or are identified, and the denominator tells me how many parts I have all together. In this case, there are 10, so 1/10. Okay, in this bar here, we can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in total. So that would be my denominator. And I can see that 3 of the blocks are shaded blue. So the fraction for this bar would be 3/10. Having a look at this one here, I can see that if I just count all the blocks, I've got 10. They're all shaded in blue. So 10/10 would be the fraction. Alternatively, I can call this 1/2 because there are 10 parts shaded, so my numerator is 10. There are 10 parts altogether, so the denominator is also 10. When I look at tenths, I always start with 1/10 all the way up until I get to 10/10. And if you can remember, I've just said that 10/10 is the same as a whole. So my numerators go up by 1 every time if I was counting in tenths, but my denominator remains the same. Okay, here then, I've got 3 bars of 10. I wonder if, for the first one, you can order the number of tenths in each block. Secondly, I wonder if you can order these measurements in centimetres. And thirdly, are you able to arrange these decimals in order of tenths? You may want to pause the video now and have a go. Let's see what you've got then. So, having a look at this first example here, I wonder if you spotted which fraction comes first. Yes, it's 1/10. Okay, I'm just going to put a little tick by that to show that I've done it. And then next would be 2/10, followed by 3/10. You may have spotted the pattern here already. 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and 10/10, also known as 1/2. Okay, having a look at these measurements here then. So the smallest measurement is 1 centimetre, followed by 2 centimetres, followed by 3 centimetres, and then 4 centimetres, 5 centimetres, 6 centimetres, 7 centimetres, 8 centimetres, 9 centimetres, and 10 centimetres. Okay, right, let's see if you were able to organise these decimals into the correct order of tenths. So, first of all then, it is 0.1 metres. Okay, and I'm going to explain why it's not 1.0 metres in a moment once we've ordered them. Then we've got 0.2 metres, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then 1. Okay, now I did say I was going to explain why this comes last. Now, if you remember me saying in the previous examples, 10 tenths is the same as 1 whole, or just 1. 10 centimetres here is the total amount of tenths, isn't it? And here, this again is the total number of tenths, which is just 1. Now, 0.1 is representing that I have 0 ones and 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, and so on, until I get to 10 tenths here, in which in my ones column, you can see that I've got 1 10 and no more tenths. So it's just 1 metre. Okay. So, which of these 2 bars shows 1/10 of the bar is blue? Is it A, this top bar? Is it B, the bottom bar? Or is it C, both of the bars? You may want to pause the video now whilst you have a look. Let's see what you have got then. So the answer is C, both of the bars. Now, it may be that this bar looks a little bigger. The pieces of each in this bar are bigger than these pieces. However, it's really important that you understand that there are 10 parts in this bar, 10 parts in this bar, but only 1 is shaded in this bar, and there's 1 shaded in this bar. So remember, my denominator, the bottom number, tells me how many parts are in total, and my numerator tells me how many parts are shaded or how many parts are identified. Okay. Now we're going to move on to look at hundredths. So as I said earlier, hundredths are 100 equal pieces. So here I've got some 100 grids, and if we just look at the first one, we know it's got 100 equal parts, and I can see, look at the top here, 1/100th is shaded. So that would be the fraction by looking at this representation here. Okay, here then, how many hundredths are shaded? Now if I know that I've got 10 squares in each row, I could use my 10 times table to count these, which will be a little bit quicker. So I know I've got 10, 20, 30. Now I haven't got a full 10 here, so I'm going to have to count them individually. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36 out of 100. So I know that 36 hundredths are shaded. How many are not shaded? Well, I'm going to count the white squares. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64 are not shaded. Okay, let's have a look at this one then. How many hundredths are shaded? Well, I've got 10, 11, 12 hundredths are shaded. So how many aren't shaded? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88. 88 hundredths are not shaded. Okay, you may want to pause the video now while you have a go at these examples for yourself. Let's see what you got then. Okay, having a look at this 100 square here, how many hundredths are shaded? Well, I can see that there are 7 hundredths shaded. So that must mean that there are 93, I'm just going to double check that, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 91, 92, 93, 93 hundredths are not shaded. Okay, let's have a look at this one then. How many hundredths are shaded? I can see there's 10, 24, 24 hundredths are shaded. So that must mean 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 76 hundredths are not shaded. Okay, well done. Right, now we're going to move on to looking at tenths as decimals. Now we've done a little bit of work on this when we were ordering tenths, but I just want to show you a fraction as a decimal using a place value grid here to make it nice and clear for you. So this is similar to what we've just been doing. So if I was to look at this and work out the fraction, I'm then going to explain how to put it into a decimal. So first of all, I'm going to count how many pieces I've got all together. So I've got 10 pieces all together. I can see that 4 of them are shaded. So as a fraction, it's going to be 4 tenths. Okay. Now, 4 tenths means less than 1. It's less than 1 whole. If I had 1 whole, all of these would be shaded, 10 tenths. But I don't even have 1. Okay, tenths represent less than 1. So as you can see here, I've got my thousands, hundreds, tens and ones column. Okay, I don't have any ones, so I'm going to fill my ones column with a 0. Then, moving to the right of the ones column, I have a decimal point. So I'm going to put my decimal point in, and the column after the ones is called tenths, and then after that it's called hundredths. Now, as we can see here, my fraction says I've got 4 tenths. So having a look at my place value grid, I wonder if you can tell where I'm going to put my 4. Yes, I'm going to put it in the tenths column. So this fraction, 4 tenths, is shown as a decimal 0.4. So my answer here would be 0.4. Because I've got no ones, I haven't got any whole numbers, my decimal point, and then 4 tenths. Let's have a look at another example. Here, I've got 9 tenths shaded. So the fraction would be 9 over 10. Now I haven't got 1 whole, so I'm going to put a 0 in the ones column. Always remember your decimal point. I've got 9 tenths, so I haven't got any hundredths, just tenths. So my decimal is going to be 0.9. 0.9. Okay, let's have a look at one more example. Here I can see that I've got 2/10 shaded, so the fraction is 2/10, and it's less than 1, so 0 in the ones column, decimal point 2/10. So my answer as a decimal is 0.2. Okay, you may wish to pause the video now and have a go at these. Let's see what you got then. Okay, so let's count how many I've got all together. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got tenths. I can see that 7 of them are shaded blue. So the fraction you should have written is 7/10, 7/10. Here I've given you a place value grid to help you. It's less than 1, it's less than 10/10. So 0 in the ones, decimal point 7/10. So the answer for the decimal is 0.7. Moving on to the next one then, I can see I've got 3/10. So as a fraction, it's going to be 3/10. It's less than 1, so I've got no ones, decimal point 3/10. So my answer is 0.3. And the last one then, I can see I've got 5 parts shaded blue, so that's going to be 5/10. And I've got no ones, decimal point 5, so my decimal answer is 0.5. Okay, let's have a look at hundredths as decimals then. Okay, so it's pretty much the same, apart from the only difference is that we've got 100 equal parts rather than 10. So here I can tell that this is one column of 10 and 1, that makes 11. So my fraction here this time is going to be 11 hundredths. 11 hundredths. Okay, so it's still less than 1 because 1 whole in this case would be 100 hundredths. Okay, so no ones, decimal point, and I've got 11 hundredths. Now, I know that 11, I've just counted here, is made up of 1 10 and 1 1. So this is how I would write my answer. So my answer is going to be 0.11. Let's have a look at another example. Let's count the squares. 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So 26 hundredths is my fraction. Okay, it's still less than 1 because remember I said 100 hundredths would be a whole. Fill in my ones column with a 0. Decimal point, well I've got 2 10s and 6 1s here, haven't I? 6 hundredths on their own. So 2 tenths and 6 hundredths. So the answer to this is 0.26. Let's have a look at one more example together and then there's some for you to try. Okay, counting in my tens then, I know I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 71, 72. So my fraction would be 72 hundredths. Okay, it's still less than a whole, so 0. Got no whole numbers there. 7 tens, or tenths, and 2 hundredths. Okay, 7 tens, 7 tenths here, and 2 hundredths on their own. So my decimal answer is going to be 0.72. Okay, finally then, here are 3 examples for you to try. So you may want to pause the video now and have a go. Let's see what you got then. So looking at number 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. So the fraction is 48 hundredths. Okay, it's less than 1. Don't forget your decimal point. 4 tenths, 8 hundredths. So the decimal answer is 0.48. Let's have a look at number 5. Now here I can clearly see that there are 90 tenths and 3 hundredths. So that's 93 hundredths. Still less than a whole. Decimal point, 9 tenths and 3 hundredths. So my decimal answer is 0.93. And finally, number 6, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. 56 hundredths is the fraction. It's still less than a whole. 5 tenths and 6 hundredths. So my decimal answer is 0.56.